I think we're good. Hello, and welcome to Critical ReRoll, the podcast by the critters for the critters. My name is Matt, and with me are two people who are also hosts. If you guys want to say hi, in whatever order you choose.
Hi, I'm Dustin, or at GeoNerd on Twitter. I almost said Jess's thing. I don't know why.
Hi, I'm Jess. Find me at go_JG on Twitter. Just kidding. I'm Herky. You should know me if you listened to this podcast before. I almost died, but I'm alive and I'm back. Sorry,
it's
guys.
All better. No issues at all. We didn't trap him in the dungeon for unknown reasons.
I escaped. It's all good.
Yep. It's like back when we had that issue with the goblins. We sent Herk in, kind of got tore up. We had to wait for him to get healed. It's great. We're all good.
Yeah.
So we're on episode, 91 of our podcast, covering 13 of the show, Critical Role, the thing that we do.
God, we're so old.
Yeah, how many years? It's like 2.5 years at this point.
Something dumb.
I think I looked at it. We've talked to like over 50 different critters doing this thing. It's crazy.
Oh yeah, this is the Beard crew. The Beard game is strong.
Don't look at it. It's so bad. Those of you listening are lucky to not see my awful, awful beard. So episode 13. I don't know if it has a name yet. I didn't see. The group just saw all that shit happen in Zedash. Things exploded. People died. And they see a dark, shadowy figure in the sewers. There's one. And this episode starts off with him attacking the group because the person saw Caleb cast a spell, comprehend languages, and he took that as like a threat because someone's casting something. So he just jumped to attack him because I guess he's on edge, and that's probably something you do if you see someone casting something at you, especially when there's wizards flying around throwing lightning everywhere.
Yeah,
was
so
in
like
the belly of the beast. Yep. Sorry,
one weird thing about that was what started the combat. Like Caleb had cast that spell, and that's what triggered the reaction from the other guy. But Caleb would have completed that spell. That spell didn't not happen. So I thought it was, he obviously just like forgot or whatever, but he spent his first turn during that combat casting that, he actually cast that spell like 2 or 3 turns later, I think, when he should have had comprehend languages up that entire time since the beginning. So he actually like wasted 1 turn in combat, I think, casting it, forgetting that he had already cast it.
I also think he might have been trying to not accidentally cast another concentration spell. But, yeah. I mean, I don't think he would have. And I don't think they were trying to hurt him initially until he, like, attacked them with his sword.
Anyway, that was the one thing that I noted during that before all of the crazy stuff went down.
My favorite part of the battle, like I never know really what to talk about battles. This one had some interesting things though. It was how Travis has taken like the dad role of the table, making sure Sam and Laura are paying attention. Like, did you see what the DM said? Are you guys paying attention? Like, nope, we're talking.
That was pretty funny. But also, as a player and a DM, that is very frustrating when people are doing things like that, even if it's game related.
Yeah.
When they're not like focused on the game, it can be a little annoying.
Well,
so I felt Travis in that moment.
Yeah, no, I wanted to identify him, but the way I play D&D is I don't do that. But he's trying to get him to make sure, like, hey, did you check the guy's AC? 16 didn't hit. Keep an eye on that. Or did you hear the DM's description of this guy, the very important note about this thing we're fighting? Because apparently what we assumed was a drow, and kind of is right, is probably like some Mercer special. It's like a drow that has prominent incisors. I think that's what he said they were. Big, like,
yeah, he focused on the teeth a lot, which obviously I don't think a normal drow generally does.
Could go along with the whole cricket aspect of them, or why they're called crickets, or the cricket army. I did like that they were trying to do non-lethal damage for once and try to catch someone and get some information. And then the drow did a really, really cool thing where it sent out echoes of itself during combat. And at one point, it was able to swap places with one of its echoes. None of us know what the hell that is.
No, he specifically said the term for that ability was transpose echo, which is not a thing that exists in anything that's been published so far as I know. So this is another creature that either Matt created as, this is part of their ability, or, it's a draw with some special class that he's been working on or made for this, if it's just more like a player character class. And that's a thing that they can do. But it's really cool. The shadows seem to only exist until they either dealt damage or took damage, but it was still really neat.
That's really useful if you can swap between them, kind of like anime style, where they can just appear behind you in an instant. Mm-hmm. So a lot of people assumed vampires. What did you guys think of that? Because I think Laura said that when she heard the teeth, she's like, "Oh, vampires." Do you think there's any truth to them being?
I don't know if I see them as vampires, but I definitely think maybe because we know Xhorhas is this weird, fierce place. Maybe there's some alteration or something, or maybe it's just a thing in Matt's drow that they have that. But we know that Xhorhas is kind of well, we only know it from, the Dwendalian side of the information, but we kind of get the idea that it's a fierce place and they're always fighting each other to be on top. And maybe that's just a thing for this specific type. Maybe this was a specific type of elite infiltrating force kind of person. I don't know. I didn't think vampire. I mean, nothing really felt vampire-y to me, but...
Yeah, no, it just felt like that was just how the thing's teeth grew.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, it seems like there's maybe some different stuff about Xhorhas, and things have been magically changed in some ways. So yeah, I don't think that is anything vampiric in any way. I think it's just something inherent to the drow, or potentially something that they have learned later to be magical in some way.
Nice.
and evolved in that manner. One thing I wanted to mention, since what we think this either creature's race or inherent abilities or class, if it were something like that, to be completely new and different, is that Matt completely made up the Nurglid, and they've only had a handful of encounters in this campaign so far, and a lot of it has been new stuff, which is really cool. In the first campaign, they really didn't fight anything that was of Matt's creation. He would take things that had already existed in the monster manual and change them to fit the party size and everything else. He didn't really create many things just himself as far as enemies and monsters go. So I think it's really cool that it seems like he's creating new stuff, which for me hopes that'll mean that maybe in the future, if we get a Wildmount campaign guidebook, that will actually have a lot of creature stat blocks in there. That'd be really cool.
Yeah, I'm excited. I even went through the Tal'Dorei one that we do have now and looked at because there are some creature stat blocks in the back.
Yeah.
Didn't see anything there. I do like the little goblin stabby stabber. That's a fun one.
Rowan pointed out in the chat that in the Tal'Dorei campaign guide that there's mention that drows do shape-shifty aberration stuff. So maybe it is kind of an offshoot of just Matt's.
That could be entirely Xhorhas's deal, is that they're super connected to the whatever plane aberrations come from.
How many drow did they actually encounter in Tal'Dorei? Not just many, right? The one that was created by chat, and that was also in Wildmount when they were with Tarion. I don't think they encountered any on the entire continent.
True. Matt was questioned about that a couple times, and he always said they exist elsewhere in the world, so maybe they just weren't common, and so uncommon that he just didn't feel like putting them in.
Right. Yeah, so that might be the reference to drow in that manner might be these specifically, because we haven't really encountered them anywhere else, so we don't know anything about them
We don't have,
really.
like a precedent for it. Yeah, the Troy Baker one. So the combat goes through. They end up beating the crap out of him, even though he's already beat to shit. They strip him down, bring him back, or like wake him up, and start questioning him on what this dodecahedron D12 nonsense is. And he refers to it as the beacon. Says that it's very important to their culture and that it is how they kind of reproduce. It's very strange.
Yeah, I mean, when you first see that, everyone thinks that it's the thing that created the explosion. And we learn eventually that it's not. But the first thing I was doing was thinking about what it could possibly be in, actual D&D lore official items that have been published, and there's nothing even remotely like that. So I don't really know what created the explosion to begin with. We don't know how that happened. The enemy quote unquote said that it was his partner who did that, and then they're the one that took the beacon. But yeah, the beacon is a mystery. It's not something that exists anywhere else. It's another thing Matt created.
So we've got more information from the campaign guide. So aberrations in the far realm are really cool. The guide says that the drow are succumbing to the aberration societies. So, and King Sundu's guess is so the beacon may be an access point to the far realm. Which is still kind of the thing that I'm on. Like, it's some sort of port key type thing, because when after the combat, Caleb does identify on it, and it's not able to really discern what it is.
Well, yeah, and like Matt described it as like you feel like a reaching out and like beyond, like the power is like even like beyond you, and you feel like you're in this space, this infinite void kind of thing, and like he kind of described it as kind of like pulling him like towards it or something like that. My first thought was, and this is a spoiler in the art book, that King Sundu reminded me of that too, because like the far realm and aberrations and this whole what we learn about the beacon, what it does for the Xhorhasians, is just that like all the Illithid like disappeared because something was calling to them, and they left to follow that. Like, I wonder if that's going to come back around to this, because this power seems to be coming, and we could talk about it later, but there is that moment where Matt was actually disappointed in one of his players' roles, because you could tell that he kind of wanted to give information out about it. So like, I really want to know like what this is actually touching, because we do find, I don't know if we want to jump into what we find out that the Xhorhasians use this beacon for yet, but
yeah, it definitely seems like it's something that's extra planar, dimensional, or something. Like, he gave Caleb the option a couple times to kind of pry further, but he refused because it was something that was so far into him that he wasn't interested in doing that because he was afraid. But it seems like it's something that he would need to kind of study, and it would essentially open his mind to things that they didn't know existed before.
Tesseract.
Yeah. So, like you said, that definitely could be related to what happened to the Illithid, because they something like that happened to them.
Where maybe that's what Kovarn got its hands on originally, and like had all these ideas to do things, and who knows? Yeah, we will one day. But this drow has lived 4 lifetimes because of whatever power is inside of this beacon. Says it's how they are able to kind of reproduce and retain memories. So like their people will be able to live more. The souls continue and the memories are retained, and then they're just kind of reborn. And then he says this real creepy line at the end of, "We live, we worship, we learn, we die, we are reborn until we are perfect." So whatever empire he's from, it seems very like invasive. Like, we're not going anywhere.
Well, like that also made me think, like, is like, because he said there were more I mean, there's more than just that beacon, so it can't be just like that thing that sustains the whole site. But like, is that is that like a class thing? Like, is there an elite group that gets to keep coming back? And is there like a lower, because I think Laura asked if like there's babies and stuff, but he said that we have babies and things like that. So like, do you get into a certain point in your life where you become this? Because it makes sense to have like the army have this resurrectioning kind of thing, because then you're always learning, it's, yeah. Or, it seems like a very tier class kind of thing to have this special power. And then we also get mention of like the Empress too, right?
Yeah, Empress, Layla Screen.
Kryn, yeah.
Yeah, Kryn.
My thought on the whole thing, because they ask him where, like, how it got stolen, and he's like, it was stolen by wizards, and it's now in Zedash inside the, I can never remember. Zabber Spire, which is either next to or connected, still not sure on that one, to the Hall of Erudition, which is like the place of study. And so it like, I'm assuming it's constantly being studied, because maybe whoever is running this place knows what it can do and is trying to like unlock that potential and probably just sell it either to the highest bidder, or like you were saying, it's a caste system thing where like all the higher ups have a chance to like live forever.
But it definitely seems like it would be something that the Cerberus Assembly would be having like strict control over.
Altered carbon style.
So I just wanted to go back to the fight real quick.
Let's do it.
I noted that when Bo was attacked, she got some sort of a magical brand from the creature. Yeah. Did they ever talk about that afterwards? Like, did it do anything? Is it still there? Like, I don't remember hearing anything about it afterwards.
Neither do I don't remember like either. I think the assumption was it's some sort of hunter's mark type thing. Yeah. But, yeah, I don't remember it ever being mentioned. Ooh.
Yeah, I assume that it probably just faded when she, later in the fight. But yeah, I don't know. I just wanted to mention that because I had that in my notes and I completely forgot about it. Anyway, moving on.
Reading all the things like how Laylas Kryn is, and Kryn is the same name as the drow that kidnapped Tyrion. Ooh. But Leslie, after I can talk. We learned that somebody helped the drow from inside the city, and so Bo and Ford start naming names and then do an insight check to see if he reacted to any of them, and he does, and we learn later that it was Ulog's name. So kind of when last week we were talking about why Ulog kept looking at his watch because he knew something was going to happen, I feel like that has been connected.
Well, it makes sense that he was more of a dark, because he was kind of a roguey character, so he probably had darker connections, and that's how possibly that these Zorhasians got in contact.
And then Jester mentions the gentleman, and Molly checks for recognition and gets a little whisper, and that is when Molly is officially like firm on team. We should just let this guy go. This is something that we don't need to get involved in. Let him have the beacon, and let's just part ways. We didn't see it. Let's go. And they go back and forth for a while, kind of talking them in and out of, should we kill him? Should we leave it? And then they kind of get to the, let's let him, but we're going to take the beacon. Or we have to like kill him and take the beacon, but he's not leaving with the beacon.
Also take off all his clothes.
Yeah.
Just his armor, not his clothes.
Well, armor, but...
I mean, also, armor would really give him away anyway, wandering around the city.
But it ends with them letting him go with just his armor, not his swords, shoes, daggers, money. But he takes his armor and the beacon and runs and is immediately captured. Which sucks. I think everybody wanted him to survive, to leave, to run, to flee.
Yeah, I feel like that was a little weird. Because they clearly seemed like they were interested in this character in a manner of like, we don't really like the Empire too, so like he might not be a bad guy. But then at the same time, they were like, even though we're robbed by bandits, but kind of killed them. We're just gonna just take all of your stuff. Like, it was kind of weird to me that they were just gonna like just take all of his shit and not, like let him live, but just take everything. I mean, I feel like if he had like a lot, like something cool, something special, like the dodecahedron item made sense, but even taking like his daggers and things like that, especially when they know he's like on the run and might need to fight his way out, I felt like it was kind of too much. They kind of like just gave him a death sentence there to begin with.
Well, and even then, as they're mentioning in the chat, like he was just lacerated. He wasn't captured, like I said. No, he was. It was clear that they
made sure that he was dead. Yeah.
Which was bullshit when they finally leave the sewers and the Crown's Guard is like, we've brought him to justice. Like, no, you murdered someone. I'm sure they destroyed a tower, but like you guys went way too far.
I mean, it would make sense that they would kill him, but
yeah, and like take so much
for the Mighty Nine, it didn't make a whole lot of sense to me the way they ended up ending that.
It is interesting, Uncle Luke. Why wouldn't they want to interrogate him? It's like they're hiding something. What are they hiding? The Crown Guards knows too much. But M9 also gets caught as they leave the sewers, and they're interrogated as like, "Why are you down there?" And quickly get out of it with good charisma rolls.
I'm glad that actually happened because I don't know if it was just for time's sake, but they didn't really do that in the other times that they kind of went through the sewers and back and forth between the Tri-Spire and stuff, because they went through like a distraction and or stealth rolls to get inside, but they never did anything to come out. And you would assume that they would also have to do that when they actually leave, because they're coming out of the same place and there are still guards there. So it was a good thing, in my opinion, that they did that this time on the way out. But they got through.
Yeah. I don't know. It from a security standpoint, it was weird that like we just found these people and there was a big explosion rather than be suspicious of everyone because of that role. He was so easily like they were just kind of okay, you're probably right.
Yeah, they came up with a good excuse though.
They did.
Everyone was like hiding and it was all crazy, so it kind of made sense.
And it was really well done. Like one person says something, the other person says something that confirmed it. Third person confirmed the first thing.
Yeah, it's weird. It's like they're working as a team.
Or it's scripted.
Maybe.
Totally is. But Crown. So at this point, it was kind of even more weird as they're leaving and they see the guy who has the dodecahedron, and it's now Jester. That's like, I'm gonna act to get this thing now, even though we already decided that we didn't want anything to do with it. But it's like keeping it from falling into the Crown Guard's hand. And Ford and Molly are kind of just like standing there, like, no, we don't need it. But she jumps into action and does her stage fall in front of him, trips somebody with her tail. It goes tumbling away. Caleb catches it. Bo's on a roof. Knot is getting ready to make a copy of it with silent image. Oh boy.
That was also something that I thought was just going to end in disaster. I didn't really understand why they wanted to go after this item so badly, especially now, like right in the plane of day when guards have it. Like that, I don't know how they got out of that, but it was absurd what they did there, and I'm really surprised.
That was another, like, it felt like a whole 180 to me. Like, all of a sudden, okay, we give it to this guy, we find out he gets killed instantly, now we want to do this, and like around all those Crown's Guard. And again, my whole theory was that every episode I'm just feared, like, okay, this is when they get arrested, because like that was just crazy, not thought out plan.
Yeah, and like not even arrested at this point. Like everything is such on high alert. Like they could be accomplices to this if they're trying to get that item back. Like they would just die. I feel like they would just try to kill them.
Matt has set a precedent that the Dwendalian Emperor does not mess around at all. And especially, like, as Herky said, in a time where everyone is on high alert, to have any sort of inkling that they are connected to this infiltration would have just been straight, like, massacre.
Yeah, I mean, I guess The
know
only
they don't
thinking
care.
could have been that they wanted him to have it so he could take it back and then get away. But then when they realized that that wasn't an option, they wanted it instead. But it doesn't make sense that they would swap a 180 that hard right in the middle of the freaking town square or whatever.
It kind of does for Jester because she's just causes mayhem.
Chaos.
But
she's chaos.
I still kind of wish Ford and Molly would have pushed them. Like, no, we need to get out of here. There's way too many people. But they end up they get out of there pretty good. I think. Let's see what'll happen.
They do it somehow.
Yeah, that's really. I didn't take any notes because it kind of just happened. They all make it out. They have their little stay in school kids bit with Bo. And yeah, kind of just walk away with it in tow and head back to. Did they split up at this point? I think they split up because some wanted to go to singing in.
Yeah, they want to go check with the
Song and Supper.
Oh, man. Song and Supper.
Dolan and Horace. And then the rest go back to the leaky. Nope.
Nope.
It's the leaky tap.
Yeah, leaky tap.
Leaky tap. Yes.
Yeah.
I did. Not saying the other one. Not gonna get me this time. But they find Dolan and Horace, and they're like getting ready to ditch town, which was interesting because they're kind of, from what I assumed, they were the ringleaders of this whole thing because the whole point was to try to get Dolan in a position where he could take that role that is now vacant because the Richter is no longer with us. But he was freaking the hell out.
Yeah, and like they were like drilling them really hard for that, but it makes sense, right? They didn't know about the whole tower thing, so clearly, like what they were trying to do was like small potatoes compared to the freaking tower exploding, and they know how scary that could be, and we obviously saw that they're willing to immediately kill anyone on site who looks like they had anything to do with it. So if they could be, tied to that in any manner, then they're dead. Yeah. At least what they did before was like came from a good place and didn't hurt anyone physically. At least they thought anyway. That was the goal. Obviously, the High Richter died, which was another part of the plan that they didn't expect. So like they were really freaked out about that, and I don't blame them at all.
Mm-mm. Like that made total sense for them to react that way.
Yeah.
But it kind of begs the question, like, what is Dolan's next play? Because if he's already this panicked, like, I don't personally see him succeeding in getting this role as the Richter.
I feel like this event might have just scared him out of the whole thing to begin with. Like, it was fine to do some subtle, political play and playing with the ranks, but I think for him, threat level wise, it's just too much, like, to put at risk now.
Yeah, and I mean, their goal was to get rid of some of the corrupt people in power. It was just like a bonus that, he might be able to rise to take that. I'm pretty sure he'd be pretty content with them just being gone and someone else taking it who might be better. Mm-hmm. It doesn't necessarily have to be him.
Well, then later they kind of hit it on the head. I forget at what point in the episode they talk about it, but they were saying that now that Dolan was supposed to run immediately to Lawmaster. Oh, what's her name?
Arenthia.
Yes, that name that I will mess up every time, so I'm just not going to say it. Lawmaster lady, and have her inspect both houses under like suspicion of whatever. But now that this happened, Sutan is going to have plenty of time to go to his house, see the rugs destroyed, and like search for whatever else was moved, and he has the chance of finding the letters. And so now their plan just might not work because the other house is on fire, and then if he finds the letters and gets rid of them, then there's no there's nothing. They've accomplished nothing at that point. And then they were mentioning that there might be a chance that is tracked back to Dolan, and so that's kind of why Dolan and Horace want to leave. I don't know. It just feels like there's nothing left for them to do there.
Yeah, they just need to wait it out.
Yeah. But Dolan decides to stay because Ford is really persuasive. And not even Ford, like Travis. Like he spoke really well. the whole time explaining like you need to stay, you need to do this. Horace agrees to stay, but then Dolan says, "No, you need to leave. I'll stay." But he doesn't want Horace to get in trouble or killed, because that's probably what's going to happen. Elsewhere, yeah, I would also follow Travis into battle. There are some things in the chat. What do we got? They could probably have bribed their way into exile. Okay. Wouldn't the High Richter and Lord Sutan be expected to be imprisoned on death row as a result of their plan? If it went through, probably. But I don't think it is the issue. God, there's so much street. I'm going to keep doing that if y'all want to read the chat.
With what's going on now, like, do we think, like, is the Mighty Nine, do they even care about the whole situation with the High Richter anymore? Like, is this just going to move on to other stuff?
Yeah, I think they're focused on getting the hell out of Dodge.
Yeah, I feel like that it took up a lot of time, and it was like this whole big plan, but it was just a distraction for other stuff. And I feel like whatever is going to happen with that might not even come to play anymore. It's not that big of a concern at this point.
It feels like they're trying to get out, but by going to the gentleman who has been brought up several times since almost the beginning of the campaign, they're just going to get wrapped back in it.
Potentially, yeah.
And they still need to go all these different places that Matt has been trying to get them to go to, like the Hall of Erudition. He's mentioned it so many times. The Leaky... Nope. Is it the Leaky Tap? That's where the place is? No.
That's where they're staying.
That's where they're staying. Yes.
Who we find out that Kara works at. And Kara was part of the team that was putting this whole Knights of Requital thing together. We can get to that in a minute. But the other half of the group, they do find out that the stone that Caleb stole was indeed a stone of sending from Sutan's house. We don't know who the other side is.
I'm surprised it took so long for him to tell them what it was and to not put it in Lara's or Jester's backpack.
Well, I guess as soon as he found out what it was, like Jester wasn't there to put it
I feel like if he's as paranoid as he is, that should have been number one priority, in my opinion.
Yeah, getting it out.
Because that could be real bad.
Yeah.
Molly, I like that Molly was focused on getting everybody to stay away from I have all my notes say D12, the beacon, because if they are trying to actively track it, then they're going to come right to them.
Yeah, that was another thing the whole time as they're walking around and when they get into the basement, that I'm like, okay, the Cerberus Assembly is not a dumb organization. Like, if they're actively tracking that, they can. And I'm like, I just kept waiting for that moment where they just like bust through the doors, all FBI style.
Secret police.
I don't know. I mean, it's not super big. Like,
yeah,
that thing should immediately go into the haversack. Like, it should not be on your person in any manner. It's got to be on a different plane or something because, it's weird how they go from being extremely paranoid to not thinking about that kind of stuff. Right. For everyone that makes sense, but Caleb, that's something that Caleb would think about, I would think.
Yeah, he seems to be like the most paranoid about all the magic stuff.
And
but
he's
also
smart.
very covetous of it.
Yeah.
Like, doesn't want anybody touching it. So I thought that was odd that he was so insistent on me and not need to stay next to this thing at all times.
Yeah.
Meanwhile, Jester pesters Claudia up about a safe. And we get that amazing scene of her being like the younger sister, like, what are you doing in there? Are you having sex?
I love Laura so much.
Like every time she talks in Jester voice and just all her antics she does, it's just impossible to not just...
Yeah. Who are that? Because apparently Claudia is super in the know about everything, which makes sense because she's letting them use her basement.
Mm-hmm.
So she knows that the Mighty Nine is up to some shenanigans, knew about like the entire plan.
Again, even if she doesn't know about everything, she knows that she's connected to something, and she knows some crazy shit went down. She doesn't want to be tied to anything because her life would be over.
Thing, though. She is selling the tavern, and she like specifically says it can't be tracked back to the tavern; it'll be tracked to me. So I'm still confused on, is she taking the fall or is she trying to like leave? You know?
I think she's saving her business.
But
that
she had like
built.
taken that from somebody else. She didn't build it herself.
Yeah, but she's keeping that and then drawing the attention to. I don't know.
It's weird, right?
Yeah,
like,
it was.
What's her
Because I
play?
feel like that would have drawn attention to her by selling and running off. But
I think
don't
she's
know.
also trying to leave. I
Yeah.
think she's just trying to get away.
I don't know. I feel like either we're still no, it's the Lawmaster that we thought was a gentleman. I like this idea of Claudia being a shapeshifter. Now that's fun. Like it wasn't actually her. That was my thought when the Richter went back to her house, that wasn't her. That was also a shapeshifter, and they killed the guards, which is why the guards didn't like ring any warning bells then. But that was just tinfoil hat, like grasping at straws. Yes, so that's the part that was weird. So Jester is pestering her, and getting all this information. Yeah, thank you. And gets to like, who are you selling the tavern to? And she's like, oh, it's a friend of mine. She's also a nice person. And then what's her name? And then she has to look at her own paperwork to figure out what the name was. So it's just like, if she's a friend, why didn't you know her name?
I don't think she had to
I'm
look
also
at
thinking
her
it
own
was
paperwork for that. I think she just didn't want to tell Jester, but Jester could easily see just by looking at the paperwork. She just didn't hide that part because it was there.
Yeah, in my mind, it's either like one of two things. Either that was something that Matt was doing deliberately, like having her have to look at the name, or Matt himself had to look at the name on his notes and kind of just pulled it over to Claudia doing it too. Or it could have been nothing and she knew the name. I don't know. I feel like...
I mean, I don't think he mentioned that Claudia had to look at it. I think he just mentioned to Jester that you could just look at the paper that's right there. The name is on it.
Mm-hmm.
I'll have to go back and watch. He did say like she leans over and looks at the name, but Matt's done it before where he like jokes about, this person looks over here and he rummages through his notes.
Well, I think it was like a similar thing of like the person is asking you a question that you don't want to answer, so you instinctively look to the answer.
That's what I was gonna say too. Like that subconscious, like when someone says something, you just quickly like look at a thing, and then that's sort of like a subtle clue to like, hey, if you look there, you'll find the information, kind of thing. Yeah.
Yeah. That's what I got out of it.
Could be.
That's the same.
But it's Lauren Schwein, I think was the name.
Yes.
Something that hasn't come up before.
Yeah. And it made me laugh because it's like, is she cool? She's fine. But now they're up in the bedroom. I think they're in like Jester and Bose because there was a pillow fight and they had to mention that. And Horace is with them now, and they all forget, and they're all talking about this thing. But Matt, in your retcons it as he walks in the room after you've been talking about your plans. Let's see what all happens. So, what do they talk about up there? I didn't take too many notes there for some reason because I don't think
nothing super important.
Yeah.
What's important is the scroll case.
Yes.
Take it away.
Well, I wasn't even thinking about the fact that it could possibly be trapped, and I thought that Caleb was being overly paranoid, but he was not, because it certainly was trapped, and they were very smart in avoiding that.
Yeah, that did not click for me either, that the case would also be trapped, because...
That's all I was thinking. Because he said, like, this case itself was giving off evocation magic, not what was in it, because you can't see what's in it.
I did not pick up on that clue.
Oh. Before that, though, they did have the whole not talking to them about her and Caleb's relationship. And how she's the parent and he's the child. Which he is. He keeps dying like children.
Yeah, that was pretty heartfelt. And like, we always, at least, I feel like a lot of us forget, and the party forgets, that Not is smart. Mm-hmm. Like, she knows what she's doing. She's a goblin, and she's not very charismatic, and, she's like a weird little creature who, like, runs away from shit, but, like, she's pretty smart. So she knows exactly what she's doing most of the time, and I think people forget that.
And also, the person who plays her is very smart.
True. Sam is phenomenal.
As much as he says he doesn't know anything, he's always got steps ahead. And yeah, so not coming out and being like, "Look, you guys got this wrong. This is a parent and child relationship, but I'm the parent." And like she was just like really adamant that, well, and it kind of plays into like she, and we don't know how they met yet. And we also get, while she's up there talking, we get a little bit of Caleb down in the basement doing a very Liam thing to do, but then also through that putting out there that there is something that Caleb has and wants to share, but also doesn't want to share. So like,
he was very silent in the jail, and she had to get him out of his shell.
Yeah.
I'm still on the whole thing where, if not is that smart, she needs to recognize that this guy is going to get himself killed being so, like, I love everything about magic, I have to have everything. And because he's been downed a couple times, he got caught up in a fireball. He's now with this group that he's going to get killed with, probably.
Yeah,
I don't know.
But
she could, there's like so many, and I know it's like their backstory, like they're intertwined, it's going to stay that way. It's just like, if this character needs somebody that's a high-level caster, like she's seen so many other people already.
Yes. I don't think it's as much as not caring about Caleb as it is not needing Caleb for purposes. So she cares about him, clearly, like, you know, it seems like she hasn't had a friend in a long time or ever. But in the same manner, it might be more important to her that Caleb does what he needs to do in order to help her. So I don't think it's as much about caring about Caleb's well-being as it is about what he can do for her.
And I also think that a little bit of it too comes out to the fact that the two of them, Caleb and Not, are going in and out of this trust relationship with the rest of the group. Like Caleb convinced that they're going to follow these guys to be, because it's safety and numbers kind of thing, they can help keep them alive. But then we're getting, since they've been in Zedash, it's been kind of fluctuating on both sides of a scale. Like, well, do we trust these guys now? Do we not? And then I'm definitely still have our own agendas. Because even like the rest of the crews like kept convincing Not, like, you can trust us too. But they're even like, so Caleb was focused on collecting all this magic, and yeah, it could be dangerous to it. But I also think that Not kind of has that narrow focus in that Caleb is the thing she needs to keep safe for her purposes. And I don't think they're really, both of them aren't really seeing out of that tunnel vision either way. So I think it's kind of like a kind of spiral in safety wise, because I think Not is smart enough to realize that maybe there's help there, but I think that she's focused on getting Caleb everything he needs.
Yeah, Not has proven herself to not be very trustworthy so far. Mm-hmm. So it would make sense that they don't trust her that much. And it does seem like she's very, narrow-minded and focused on, specific things like that. And some of it, has to do with stealing and then, protecting Caleb. Like that, her first instinct is to do those things. But there's a longer game there in the back of her head. And then with Caleb, his first instinct, he kind of goes magic crazy, and his instinct is to not trust anyone. So, like, that's what he does by default, especially when he has a split-second decision. But he seems to trust the group. It's just, like, his default is to not trust anybody. Mm-hmm. So that's why he'll take items immediately. He'll want to go for the magic immediately. He'll want to do all these things in a split second. But after he thinks about it, he's like, no, that was probably a bad idea, or, okay, I'm going to share this with the group now. Like, it just takes him a little bit to come out with that kind of stuff. It's just his instinct is to not do that. But I think Caleb's relationship with their group has been a lot better than Not's, and there is some trust between him and pretty much everybody else. But we know that Not doesn't trust anyone except for Jester and Caleb.
True. I did appreciate Taliesin when I guess we could go back to the scroll thing, like when the scroll did go off and there was that thump, he nat 20'd the perception check. But Taliesin, and he did this thing the first season, which is why like not a lot of people really knew anything about Percy the first couple episodes because it wasn't about him. It wasn't his storyline yet. And so Talison's really good about letting people have their moments.
Mm-hmm.
So that's something I wanted to point out. It's really cool that Taliesin does that. And then they're officially level 4.
Well, before that,
go ahead and finish the magic stuff.
Yeah, so Caleb sees what the scrolls are, and then thanks Not and starts crying, and it's like such a heartfelt moment. Like it shows you how much he really cares about what Not did for him and how obsessed he is with learning these things. But and Dusty, you know this more than anybody. It's so fucking awesome to get a new spell scroll to copy into your spell book.
Oh god, it's literally, and I talked about this last week too, like because people are always like he's just so obsessed with collecting these things. Like, yeah, but as a wizard, because you have that ability, and it's a new spell, and it's so hard when you're picking new spells as a wizard that you're like, oh, but this one would be really good too, but I can only pick 2. Yeah, it's just amazing when you find a new scroll spell, and especially if it's one that you want. And I think that a lot for Liam, he might be doing like what I did, was I picked a lot of my spells based on my character until we started running into troubles, and then my character was very professorial, and so he would always pick things that would work out for everybody. But there was always one spell that I'm like, oh, I wish I could have that. And then randomly I find one, I'm like, that's mine. Give it to me. It's mine.
Yeah, the only problem is, of course, it costs some money to do that, and they're getting a little bit of money. Like he should have enough to start to do that soon. When Not asks about what it is, Caleb doesn't say specifically, so we don't know what they are yet. But he does say it's something that he's been wanting to learn for a while. So my guess is that they might be higher level spells that he can't cast yet, that he might need to hold on to and might come into play in the future.
Got Rowan guessing on counter spell.
He did mention that it would be useful for everyone too. Like it's something that he's wanted, and it will help us all. And
he's like, this is good for the group. This is good for you and me.
Yeah, I forgot to look through the spells to see what it could possibly be.
There are so many. I mean, it could be dozens. Yeah. Like we don't know what level it is. It could be a 3rd or 4th level spell.
Yeah, like this was a highly protected spell scroll case. So it's
I don't think the Richter would have anything that's not super duper edge.
That could have been like the Richter's. Or no, it wasn't. Was it the Richter's room? It was. So it could have been like a go bag type thing. Like that's a get out and go card. Maybe it's like a teleportation circle or something.
Yeah, we have no idea, and we probably won't know for a little while. But they're there. So like you mentioned, they're level 4. They're going to be level 4 after they sleep. As they sleep, we get some beacony shit. Talk about some beacony shit, because that's pretty much what I wrote down in my notes.
I didn't really get too much out of that. It just seems like an infinite space inside of this thing. That's like Matt's just like focus on it, open the box.
Yeah, I mean, I feel like you just need to listen to Matt talk about it. I don't think there's anything super special that we need to know about it. It didn't reveal like that many clues besides the stuff that we already kind of talked about regarding the beacon. We just kind of get a better idea of what it is, I guess.
It reminded me of, and like, Star Wars spoiler saying it.
I literally typed that in the chat.
Did you?
I was watching it live. Well, not here, but when I was watching it live.
So the latest Star Wars movie, Ren has that moment where she dives into the hole, where like the dark side exudes from, and she like taps on the glass, and she sees a bunch of Rens, and she turns around because something taps her, and it's a really cool. Ray, I kept saying Ren. Why did I say Ren?
I don't know.
Is there a Ren in Star Wars?
Kylo Ren?
Yeah.
There is a Ren. Okay. That's not the one I was talking about. Okay. Well, Ray, I'm going to go through and edit out all of the Rens and switch it with Ray. So
cool. Then edit out that part where you're talking about it.
Yep.
And this part where we're talking about
this one, making notes. Moving on.
So yeah, that happens, and they go to sleep.
Yeah, and I think that was a little bit more of like enticing and kind of letting Caleb know through a nice RP moment that there is something more to this, and it might not be, as dangerous as he kind of thinks it is. I definitely got you. In that we didn't really get more than what we've already talked about. I mean, it's definitely related to some sort of other planar thing, probably, that brings souls back and things like that, and multiple Calebs kind of hinted towards that too.
Yeah, I think it was a good way for Matt to try to convince Caleb to pry into it a little bit more, but that didn't really happen. And then the next day, this is skipping ahead a little bit. We'll talk about the sleep and leveling and stuff, but he has Caleb roll again in our Arcana check, I think, on it. And, Travis is like, oh, can I do that? Can I do that? But it's really about who's holding the beacon, which is Caleb. So he won't let him actually do that. But
and there was
he wants to give information. We just can't get it because they're not rolling or prying.
Yeah, and that was the interesting thing that somebody had mentioned on Twitter that Matt replied to that I saw, where calling out to DMs, like, if you want your players to notice something, don't have them roll for it. Kind of in a story way, give them that. Because you want them to have this information. If you have them roll and they roll poorly, then you're just like, oh, I just tied my hands behind my back. I can't do it now.
Yeah, there's a balance between giving them enough information to kind of put them on the right path and rolling for them to get information that would be more helpful.
Mm-hmm. And I think sometimes you get so invested in as a story creator, a DM side, you get really invested in a thing and you get super excited when it could possibly be I would have that trouble. I've only DM'd once, but I would have that trouble being like, this is really, really cool, guys. I really want to share it with you. And then choosing to have them roll for it. And then, that chance of it going bad. And then oh, well, now I can't say anything. Because I really liked Matt's face when he rolled bad. And you could just see he was like, oh.
He's like, oh,
really, really wanted that to go well.
Yeah.
Let's see.
Okay, so they level.
They do. And we don't know who all took what yet as far as stat increases. We just know that Molly now has the tough feat.
Yeah, so we learned about that. Molly has up to 49 HP. Unfortunately, the 4th level isn't anything crazy, so we don't get to learn a whole bunch of cool new stuff about the characters because it's mostly just ability score increases. Right. So they're probably going to be taking those or some feats. Obviously, Molly took a feat. A couple things to note. Ford gets a new spell. Which is pretty cool. Jester just gets a new cantrip, which isn't really important. Bo just gets slow fall. Again, also not really important. Caleb did not get new spells. And there's really only 4 spells that Not can actually learn right now. 2 of them are Color Spray and Sleep, which are very similar spells to begin with. And then there's Illusory Script and Charm Person. Of those, Illusory Script seems like the only one that would make sense for Not. So I feel like that's the only spell that she could really take, I think. It would seem weird for her to take Charm Person when she's such an uncharismatic person to begin with.
I think we all just read the same thing.
Yeah.
Slow Fall. It's Marisha's character. Slow Fall is very important. Nice one.
True.
David Ruzgavdi.
But then Caleb gets 2 new spells, and those could be freaking anything. So within this session, Liam gets to choose 4 new spells, which is
at this point,
so awesome.
It seems kind of likely that
he gets 4 new spells, including
if Not
the scrolls.
Has the option to take Charm Person, she will because it's been used on her.
That's true.
She's seen it used a couple times. And the whole kind of mythos of Nod is that she's learning magic and kind of copying what she sees. So maybe it's oh, I've seen that spell, I'm going to learn it now.
Well, she hasn't seen Message, I don't think, and she has that.
True.
But it's very important,
but that was
especially with her relationship with Caleb. Yeah. But that's a good point. She might take that just to spite with Molly. Yeah, that would be pretty funny.
What else? We don't really get anything. I'm interested to know if Matt allows them to do both stats and feats, or just one or the other. It's
one or the other. That's how it's always been. I mean, that's how it should be, because otherwise your characters get too OP. Mm-hmm. But in the last campaign, it's always been, stats or feat.
So they talk more about what they're going to do this day, and they kind of have a shopping list. So they need to get a lead box, they need to go to the gentleman, and they need to get Horace out of town. And then I like that there was a callback to, what was his name? The guy that they met when they first entered Zedash. They're we don't know anybody shady in town.
Oh.
I don't remember his name either.
I don't remember his name either.
Someone in chat will.
Ulysses.
Great.
Yeah.
Ulysses. I was it's the president's name.
Yeah. A name I used in a short story in high school.
Yeah. So they mentioned him. I don't think they were going to talk to him, but they do go talk to the blacksmith guy to commission a lead box. And they have to, I guess, Laura has to come up with a reason for it real quickly that kind of wouldn't put them under suspicion. And so She says that her mother likes boxes made out of lead, or like likes jewelry boxes, and that she gets enough gold stuff that she thinks lead is like different and pretty.
Which I think is silly because we find out as soon as they go to the Pumat that like that's relatively common in these worlds. Like there's magic. Everyone knows that there's magic and knows what fights against magic. So any paranoid person or anyone who's like proficient with magic might have a lead box. So I think it's weird that they were trying to hide it so much.
Then they bring out the stone and all the other magic items, and the whole time I'm like, just use it. Just say hi through it. Do it. You want to use the sending stone you have figured out. And I like that Not is the one like, can't we say that we've been compromised and they need instructions?
I feel like all of that is a bad idea. I was again just like panicking, like don't do any of that thing, hide that thing forever.
No, it's a great because that's basically what happened the first campaign before stream, where they go in and they have they're like in Brimscythe's secret dungeon and all the different dragon eyes open up and like they're seen kind of through a large video conference version of Stone Ascending. I'm like, it's happening again.
Yeah, well, it'd be interesting to see what seed that thing is.
Yeah.
Too.
Because that was from Sutan's, correct? Sutan's place. So whatever connections he has, that's probably a direct line to that. But they end up going to the Invulnerable Vagrant again to see our favorite Pumat soul. And
we get a little call. We get a little callback.
We do. Pumat is reading a book, a very, very good book, but not first buys the like R&D development. That is what the D stands for. Never mind. Of a flask of like endless
alcohol. Yeah, that's gonna be great.
Flask of endless courage.
Yeah, I love how committed she is to that, and will immediately pay large amounts of money for that.
Well, it was interesting too because like we still don't know how much Not has, and so when Jester's like, "That's a lot of money," she's like, "That's nothing."
I think it's nothing compared to how useful this is for her.
Take my platinum flask because that's also something that's normal for people to have. They finally meet Pumat Prime. No, this is the second time because Pumat Prime came to change the haversack to pink. So they say hi to him again. This is the first time, though, that Bo is meeting Pumat. And she kind of like, I don't know. I can't really gauge her reaction because she's not really magic-y.
Because she's Bo. But it's just funny. I like that they all kind of met Pumat in a staggered manner because it's just fun to watch people encounter that for the first time, even though obviously Marisha knew what was going on many weeks ago.
And it was kind of like, when's my turn? I want to meet him now. We get some backstory from Pumat, though. They ask him kind of how he got his start. We know that he didn't get along with his peers. He was picked up by some wizards because they recognized his kind of natural talent and they honed it. And he's had the current shop that he's at for 12 years. We know that the mages were from the Cerberus Assembly that kind of started teaching him. The main person that kind of taught him was the headmaster, Orman Haas of the Hall of Erudition. He's the Archmage of Cultivation within the Cerberus Assembly, and he has a thing, or like a soft spot for small critters. And the first time I didn't think about anything of that. The second time, I started thinking that this is the umpteenth, thousandth time that he's brought up the Hall of Erudition, and they still haven't got to explore it. But also the small critters bit, because beforehand there's this whole conspiracy theory of the trafficking of magic and exotic animals, and maybe that they're coming from this person who has a thing for critters and not like critters like me. And he's like, maybe, and changes the conversation. I don't know. I feel like there's something there, and I want them to explore very quickly.
Yeah, that was some definite foreshadowing or hinting from Matt.
Yeah. Like my big note is he's the one getting magic exotic animals. I want to know. Then they oh, good.
I was just gonna say, one of the things we didn't really talk about that comes up here is that they identify all of the items that they took.
Yeah, that was the next from because they split them up.
The dude, and the daggers, were normal, but we don't know anything about most of the items, I think. Like, well, we don't know much about the longsword. We just know that it's a magical longsword, and that no one in the party can really use it except for Ford, but he's obviously attached to his. So it's probably going to go to Yasha. But Yasha also seems pretty attached to her weapon. I don't know if she's going to be attached enough that she won't take a better one mechanically, but seems like that's the only party user that can really use it right now.
We know the daggers aren't magic, but Matt did kind of reference that they were made out of a darker material, so they could still be enhanced in some way. Like, these are definitely like Zorhashian weapons. So we don't know what the sword does. We know that the boots are, I don't know the name for them, but they give you a D8 to initiative once a day.
Mm-hmm.
What else did they find?
I feel like they did the exact opposite of what I think they should have did with the boots, was instead of giving it to the person who already has the best initiative, give it to the person who has the worst initiative. Because more often than not, Bo is going to be going first or within the top of the order anyway. Why not actually give it to someone who would actually significantly change their initiative order?
Right. Like, I would have given it maybe to Jester, because she's the cleric, so she needs to heal. It gives her a chance to be higher up in the hierarchy of initiative. I do like this question from King Sandu. Does Pumat Soul report customers to the Cerberus Assembly? And I would assume yes. Just because I would love it for Pumat Soul to not so much be evil, but to be the cause of some disruption within the group.
Well, I guess it depends on what you're reporting. I mean, what does that mean? Reporting as in you've seen
the same group of people come in 3 days in a row, and they're asking for like high level magic stuff, questions about the Cerberus Assembly, a lead box that
I don't think any of that is abnormal for someone who owns a magic shop and for people who are of that caliber. But if in the opposite, it could be, seeing anything necessarily suspicious that could potentially be reported. But is that something that would be reported to the Cerberus Assembly or, the Crown's Guard? Depending on...
Well, he's an annex of the Cerberus, so I figured that'd be his first point of contact. But I would see it as kind of odd, because it's these people that he's never seen before, and they've come back 3 days in a row, and he mentioned at the beginning when they tried to get a deal with him on health potions, he's like, this is your first time, we don't really have a rapport yet. So they're kind of building one, but they're also asking for like random things, it feels like.
Yeah, but I also think that that's sort of like a balance, because first of all, Matt made a really fun character. They could go to other magic shops. I'm sure there are other magic shops in Zedash. And I wouldn't think so much that the coincidence that they keep going there, one, because it's just fun to go there and deal with Pumat Soul. And I don't think we don't know much about what kind of control we know the Cerberus Assembly controls magic in a certain way, but we don't know what kind of control they have on annexes and things like that. I mean, they could just let the shops just kind of run, unless there's someone in there probably like asking for like necromantic magic or something like that might alert someone to be like, hey, this is sketchy kind of magic. But I haven't seen a lot of evidence in what they've kind of been asking for that's too crazy yet. I don't think that he would be questioning them really.
Yeah, I don't think anything they've done has been anything abnormal. I think they've just been going there because they need magic items and because he's a nice dude and his prices are fair and seems really easy to work with. I don't think
the timing, just because they show up a couple days before the tower falls, and then the day after they want this thing to protect something from being tracked. And I like that Rowan says, I wouldn't be surprised at all if part of the deal to keep the simulacrums is to inform on anybody that comes in the shop.
Yeah, I mean, it's very fair that, maybe not anything specific needs to be reported, but more that everything needs to be reported. Like, he just has a ledger of, all of the things that have been sold and by whom, and the Cerberus Assembly can see that or request that at any time.
Yeah, some sort of accountant in the Cerberus Assembly probably logs all that information from its annexes. That makes complete sense.
Yeah.
Well, that now Not has a receipt, so I'm assuming it knows, or Pumat Soul knows, A, Not's name, B, that she's a goblin, and C, that she's, dropping a lot of gold on stuff, which might be a red flag somewhere. Who knows?
I mean, it's not a lot of gold comparatively.
But it's a goblin buying something with a lot of gold.
Yeah.
It's the thing.
It's a goblin with a bunch of friends who also seem to be pretty well outfitted, not just a lone goblin, but still a relatively fair amount of gold for a goblin, we would assume, I guess.
But they split up the weapons after talking to Pumat. And then they're all kind of wondering, like, were we just a distraction for something else larger? Will Sutan find the notes and get rid of them and then turn on Dolan? They kind of talk for a bit and then decide that it's finally time to go see the gentleman at the evening nip. And we finally get them to use the thing that they learned, the whole saying of, I don't have coin, but I have many, offerings, favors?
Gifts.
I would have failed and been killed on the spot. But they gain entry to an underground tavern. They go down. Matt describes the scene. There's some music playing on balconies. There's people. I think he said there's some gambling going on down there. And then they are greeted by a black-furred tabaxi. And that is where we get the Mercer special cliffhanger, where tabaxi doesn't, kind of like, halt friends, I don't recognize you. Oh, Lucian? Is that you? I thought you died. You survived? Addressing Molly Muck. And you can see, I still don't know if Taliesin was taken by surprise or if he 100% knows this name, Lucian.
Yeah, it was weird to gauge Taliesin's reaction because he seemed very surprised. But if he were connected to the Myriad or the Gentleman in any sort of way, he would have expected this. And I didn't piece it together at all, but when you mentioned earlier that he was asking, the information about the Gentleman from, the Crick character, when he got a whisper, he just told him he could go. That almost seemed like a flag that he kind of knew information about, the Myriad or the Gentleman and just wanted this person to go away, or immediately changed his mind or something. But that seemed like in character for Molly to begin with, so I didn't question it until you mentioned it here now. But Taliesin seemed genuinely surprised, I thought, at this. He
seemed surprised and also super excited that he's finally getting backstory. Because there's this whole amnesia theory that Molly Mock doesn't have any memories, like true memories from before the circus. So if that is true, this is super exciting for us, and if it is Taliesin. But it could also, I don't know. He seemed super caught off guard, but very giddy that it happened.
But was that Molly being caught off guard, and then, or Taliesin being caught off guard, and then turning it into Molly being like, oh, I just have one of those faces.
But he's like a purple tiefling.
Nice.
I never trust you forget.
I don't trust Taliesin ever. Anyway.
True.
But we do have that theory because we know, what's her face? The little girl had mentioned that her and Molly kind of found their voices together when he came. We don't really know exactly how literal that was or whatever, but Molly came to the circus either quiet or unable to talk, or maybe completely forgetting his past, and that's why he has all these stories, or he's just always a diversion throwing out stories so that no one ever really knows. Everything about him screams just, you can't focus on one thing with Molly.
Yeah, everything's about him a lie unless it comes out of Matt Mercer's mouth.
Jewelry, gaudy coats, it's just all distraction. Don't pay attention to me. And that's, he's also the purple tiefling, and we know that there's Zorhasian kind of angst against that.
I really love the idea that Molly would have amnesia or something like that. Just allowing the DM to completely kind of form your backstory and learn it as you go, as you play, would be incredibly freaking cool.
Yeah, I that whole idea is really cool to me. I kind of want to have that too. Just not, and that's, I think that's a really fun. I know Taliesin always has these amazing ideas, and a lot of times me as a player, I'm oh man, why didn't I think of that? Because then you're you're sitting there playing, and you can play off a character that you think but you never know what's going to come. A lot of us when we play D&D, we kind of have a story, and we've kind of talked to the DM, this is where we kind of see our character, and there's always going to be those bits and pieces of oh, this is the thing, I recognize this thing, and then seeing how the DM takes that spin. But if it is the amnesia and just let Matt go with the story, you don't know what is going to happen. So you never know. Like, that seems like super fun. Just be
Yeah.
like, oh, this is me now? Oh, cool.
Yeah, that would be awesome. So what I think, because Taliesin seemed so surprised, like I said, he would be expecting this if he knew this ahead of time, like this person or was related to the Myriad in some way. So what I think is that this character that seems to know Molly is someone from Molly's past, but Molly probably didn't know that they were related to the Myriad. Molly wasn't expecting to run into this person here. So it's probably someone that Molly knows, but I don't think that it's that Molly is related to the whole situation in any way, just that specific person. That's what I think is going on currently with Black Panther or whoever this person is.
Yeah. T'Challa. I don't know. I like this one really a lot from Matt Nicholson in the chat. Molly has 5 aliases. We now know Lucian, but there's still an M-O-L and Y in his name. Like Molly. That would be fun. And Mock was just added on. But now like begs the question, like, where did he get, if that's not true, because I don't know, it's pretty tin hat, but I love it. Where did he get the name Molly Mock? Like, did he, and also his claimed last name of Tea Leaf? Like, where did those come from? Where did they go? Where did they come from? Cotton Eye Joe.
It's true. I mean, they're not typical tiefling names or whatnot.
Very circusy names too, though.
I mean, the very first time I heard it, I thought he said Molly Mock Tiefling. Like he was just like, my name's Molly Mock. Yes, I'm a Tiefling. I don't know. I never heard Tea Leaf. I heard it as Tiefling the first time.
Yeah.
I don't know. I want to know.
It's a good question. I don't know. I know there's a lot of theories about throwing around about who the gentleman is, and this person's the gentleman, and this person's the gentleman. I don't think it's anyone that we've ever met before. I think it's a lot more secretive than that. And I don't think that Molly has any relation. I don't think Molly has any relation to them. No, I don't think it's the Lawmaster.
There was one fun, and I think it was Uncle Ook, not Uncle Ook, Oogie that sent it. Oogie Boogie. That like Molly Mock had a twin brother, and they like one wanted one thing, the other wanted something else, and one of them died, and Molly Mock survived, but like took the other brother's name to do other things. And so now, I don't know. It was interesting. It was a fun read. It was pretty out there, but I enjoyed it. I don't know. I want to know more about Molly Mock. That's Molly Mock and 4. That's all I care about. Give me all their backstories. All of them.
I still want to see Jester's mom and Jester's hometown.
Yes, and her dad.
Same. Her dad? Yeah. I'm most invested in Jester's story, I think. But
we glazed over it. We had our like official, kind of official first callback to the first campaign. Like we mentioned it, but we didn't go back to it. Pumat Soul's reading a book. There's a plane traveling somewhere.
Oh, that's me. Sorry.
Yeah, that's a
helicopter.
Okay.
I'm by a hospital, so it's helicopter drop off.
Have to get this out. So yeah, Pumat Soul is reading a book, and they finally ask what book it is, and he says that it is the Daring Tales. What was it? The Daring Tales and Tribulations.
I think it's just the Daring Tales.
I think it's the Daring Tales of Terry Darrington.
Or Trials. Yeah. Daring Tales and Trials. I know there was another word. But it's Terry's book. Terry finally got his book published after who knows how many years.
Their reaction was so great. I mean, my reaction was great. I think everyone's reaction was great. That's the best thing.
Like, each of them had, like, a spark of recognition at different times, but as soon as he was like, it's the stories of this guy, and Sam knew immediately, and then it's the Daring Tale, and then Laura knew, and then everyone else knew. It was fantastic. And how, I do like that they, like, didn't want to know the story. Like, everyone else was kind of pushing back as Liam was like, give us a synopsis. And they're like, no, we don't want to know. Spoilers.
It was really great that Sam and Laura are sitting next to each other now.
Yes.
Because how Sam hugged Laura, it felt so Tyrion and Bex, and it was sad but happy.
Yeah. I do like that those two are together now, because I like their antics a little bit.
Them two by each other, and Travis and Marisha have been great, because they do like their buddy cop side drama stuff. Man, so
I know a
we're in
lot
this
of people
position
at the
again.
I mean, I remember a lot of people at the beginning were like, so like, oh no, everything's different. They even like changed like the seating and stuff. But I do like to see. It's like, I mean, they changed like a couple people had changed seatings before, and like it was cool to see them interact more. I think it was Mersha and Taliesin because didn't like Sam sit in between them for a while in the
Yes.
original
Yeah.
campaign?
Yeah, they move
then-
people around because of
yeah.
size.
Yeah. And so yeah, I do like you get to see like this new little dynamic of like them playing with you, like playing off of each other and stuff. So
Well, now with the great, like the awesome Wormwood table they have, they're actually at a single table now,
they're at
looking
a corner
at each
now,
other.
and
Again.
they can all, they can
It's
all see
very-
each other.
It's heartwarming to see them interact with each other. But that's it. Do you guys have anything else for the end of the episode where we think we're going with it?
I just love that Pumat called him Dottie.
I like that Sam was like, it sounds like shite, you don't need to read it.
Yeah.
Like he's like, I can't believe most of this that's in this book.
Yeah, he's got these group of these powerful people from Teldore keep messing up.
Yeah. So in regards to Lucian, T'Challa seems like genuinely surprised and like I guess not expecting
to see
Molly
this Lucian person.
Mock. Yeah, he seems like, oh, like I'm so glad you're alive or okay. I forget exactly what happens, but it almost seems like he was not expecting to ever see this person again in almost a bad way. So I don't know. I'm kind of hoping or thinking that this was a previous like partner or lover of Molly who didn't go some way and Molly got out of it in some way.
Oh, I like that.
Yeah.
That
What about you,
sounds fun.
Dusty? What do you think, Dusty?
I don't know. I want to find out more. Molly's the one that I don't know. Like, I can't speculate so much about because he hasn't. Taliesin has kept all of that just so distracted and close. Like, I don't know what to believe from that guy. And now that we get someone that recognizes him, whether it's actually him or not, I hope it's something. I really like her theory, so I'm gonna.
I do like that. I like the name Lucian or Lucian, however you want to say it, is a very Taliesin name.
Lucian. Wow.
Just makes me think of League of Legends, but whatever.
Yeah, well, and even that, like he uses light from his pistols, and so like, and he took the Order of the Ghost Slayer, which does radiant damage, which a lot of people like associate with light. So I feel like that is Molly Mock's true name, or one of.
Possible.
I don't know. I'm excited to see like the next 5 minutes of the next episode because I feel like shit's gonna hit the fan again for some reason. Does it? Okay. I think we are all set. We're now talking in the chat about Molly possibly being furry.
Yeah, I mean, it's not a furry if it's like a humanoid creature. Like these just exist in this world. I mean, does that make like a tiefling a furry in a way? Because it's like has horns like an animal.
Nah, we're not having this conversation, especially not at the end of the podcast. This is like
this could go on for hours.
Is Ford going to have to excuse himself from the meeting or sneeze into oblivion in the presence of a tabaxi? Because he is. We've established that he's allergic to cats. How much more will the Empire crack down on the city once the stuff has been discovered? If the stuff is discovered. I still feel like it's not going to be discovered. I feel like all of that was just all for naught. I couldn't think of another way to say that. But I think I'm going to end it there. Thank you guys for hanging out with us on this night of conversation. That was weird. My name is Matt. If you guys want to say your names again, where they can find you.
Dusty at GeoNerd on Twitter.
I'm Herky. My stuff's right there.
Is it? Oh, it is.
Okay,
I was like, where are you pointing? I'm looking at your.
I could have gone like that. Whatever that is.
Oh,
but I'm on a delay, so I don't know when I'm pointing.
yeah, it's down here, Matt Abernathy. If you, I mean, like what we do, tell a friend, get some more people to talk about Critical Role. It's very, very fun. Other than that, everybody go ahead and say bye.
Bye.
You get some jazz hands. Wait,
Jazz hands? We could do jazz.
Jazz hands or Rakshasa hands? What's going to be the new Rakshasa? Is it Tabaxi? Like, yeah, Tabaxi voter. Yeah, thanks for watching, everybody.
Bye.